Welcome to the world of science function. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. Enjoy the listening. A golden streak slashed across the obsidian sky as the broadcast tower came alive with an otherworldly hum. The stars seemed to shiver as if sensing the monumental ripple about to echo through the cosmos. Nestled on a distant Earth-like planet known as Orpheon II, the tower stood as humanity's final bastion of interstellar communication, transmitting faint whispers of a once thriving civilization into the void. The air around it crackled with anticipation, the night poised on the brink of revelation. Beneath the glimmering structure, two figures stood locked in a heated argument. Nora Vance, a brilliant but scatterbrained linguistics expert with a penchant for conspiracy theories, waved her hands wildly as she tried to convince her partner, Rain Keller, of the sheer absurdity of their situation. Rain, a former military tactician turned field engineer, responded with her trademark stoicism, her piercing gaze scanning the surrounding forest for any sign of movement. "You can't seriously believe that thing is sending messages to, what did you call them, hyper-predatory galactic overlords?" Rain's voice carried a sharp edge of disbelief as she slung her rifle over her shoulder, the gleaming weapon a stark contrast to Nora's messy hair and lab coat stained with coffee and chemicals. "I'm just saying," Nora replied, her tone defensive but tinged with excitement. "The linguistic patterns in the tower's transmissions don't match anything in human archives. It's almost as if it's responding to something." Rain groaned and rubbed her temples. "You've been saying that for months, Nora." "Months? But what have we found?" "Static and more static." "And what if tonight's different?" Nora said, her voice suddenly lowering, her eyes gleaming with an intensity that made Rain pause. "What if tonight, the universe finally answers back?" Before Rain could respond, a piercing sound, half scream, half metallic screech, ripped through the night air. Both women froze. Rain's hand instinctively reached for her rifle, while Nora, ever the scientist, grabbed her portable data pad and began recording the sound with feverish precision. The screech crescendoed, reverberating through the air, and then abruptly stopped. The silence that followed was deafening, heavy with a sense of foreboding. The two exchanged a glance. "That wasn't human," Nora whispered. "No kidding," Rain muttered, scanning the darkness with her infrared scope. Her heart thumped in her chest, not from fear but from the sharp awareness of danger. The ground beneath them trembled slightly, a subtle vibration that seemed to emanate from the tower itself. Its lights pulsed rhythmically, as though breathing, casting eerie shadows that danced across the surrounding forest. "This can't be good," Rain said, her voice clipped. Nora, however, was transfixed. "Do you see it?" she asked, pointing to the top of the tower. "It's responding. The signals, it's as if they're alive." "Alive or not, we need to get out of here," Rain snapped. "Now." But before they could move, the tower emitted a low, resonant tone, a sound that seemed to vibrate in their very bones. The tone was followed by a sudden burst of light that shot into the sky, piercing the atmosphere like a beacon. And then, as if answering the call, a second light appeared on the horizon. It was faint at first, a small pinprick of white against the black canvas of space. But it grew rapidly, swelling into a blazing orb that hurtled toward them with terrifying speed. Nora's breath hitched. "Oh no!" "Oh yes," Rain countered, already dragging her toward the bunker they'd set up near the base of the tower. "Move!" The two sprinted, the forest alive with shadows and the distant roar of the incoming object. Trees swayed violently, leaves torn from branches as a windstorm erupted seemingly out of nowhere. Inside the bunker, Rain slammed the reinforced door shut and activated the locking mechanism. "What the hell was that?" she demanded, her usually composed demeanor cracking under the strain. Nora was already typing furiously on her data pad. "I don't know, but the signals, they're changing. It's like they're talking to each other." "Talking?" Rain echoed, incredulous. "You mean whatever that was, it's alive?" "I don't know," Nora admitted, though the glint in her eye betrayed her excitement. "But this is the biggest discovery in human history." "We're not alone, Rain." I think we established that about 5 seconds ago, Rain said dryly, checking her weapon's ammunition. Question is, are they friendly? The bunker shuddered violently, as if in answer. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and the faint sound of metal groaning echoed through the air. Outside, the strange orb of light had landed, its brilliance illuminating the forest like a second sun. Nora peeked through the narrow viewport, her breath catching as she saw it. The orb was no longer just a sphere of light. It had shifted, its shape elongating, morphing into a sleek, alien structure that hovered ominously above the ground. Symbols, unfamiliar and fluid, danced across its surface, pulsating in time with the tower's signals. Rain joined her at the viewport, her expression grim. Great. First contact, and it's already terrifying. They're communicating, Nora whispered, her eyes glued to the alien symbols. The tower's signals, they're responding to each other. And what are they saying? Rain asked, her tone laced with sarcasm. Nora didn't respond immediately. Instead, she stared at the symbols, her mind racing as she tried to decipher their meaning. Her linguistic training kicked in, patterns and structures forming in her head. They're calling us, she finally said, her voice trembling with a mix of awe and fear. They're inviting us to come closer. Not a chance, Rain said firmly, gripping her rifle. We stay here, we wait, and we figure out what we're dealing with before making any moves. But Nora was already moving, her curiosity overpowering her fear. She grabbed her equipment and headed for the door. Nora, don't. Rain called after her, but it was too late. As the bunker door slid open, the alien light bathed Nora in its glow. She took a tentative step forward, her heart pounding as the symbols on the alien structure seemed to shift and rearrange themselves, almost as if they were watching her. Rain swore under her breath and followed, her rifle at the ready. This is a terrible idea, she muttered. The two approached the alien structure, its surface humming with energy. Nora reached out, her hand trembling as she touched it. The moment her fingers made contact, a shockwave of light and sound erupted, and the world around them seemed to dissolve. When the light faded, they found themselves standing in a vast, unfamiliar space. The walls shimmered like liquid metal, and strange, ethereal beings floated in the air, their forms shifting and flowing like smoke. Nora's breath hitched. We're inside it. Rain tightened her grip on her rifle, her eyes scanning the environment. Stay close, she ordered, her voice low. We don't know what we're dealing with. But deep down, both of them knew. This was just the beginning. The broadcast had awoken something far greater than they'd ever imagined, and humanity's darkest wrath was yet to come. The alien space shifted around them, the walls pulsating faintly with a rhythmic glow that seemed to mimic a heartbeat. The air was unnaturally still, carrying no sound but the faint hum of energy. Nora and Rain stood in stunned silence, their senses overwhelmed by the alien environment. Nora was the first to recover, her scientific curiosity flaring to life. Do you see this? She whispered, running her hand along the shimmering surface of a nearby wall. It's not metal, not entirely. It feels alive. Alive and probably hostile, Rain muttered, her rifle still raised as she scanned the shifting expanse. Her military instincts screamed danger at every corner. We need to figure out a way back, now. Before Nora could respond, the ground beneath them rippled like water, throwing both of them off balance. They stumbled but managed to stay upright. A low, resonant sound filled the air, almost like a deep, guttural laugh. What was that? Rain demanded, her voice tight. I think. Nora hesitated, her eyes wide. I think it's them. Them? Rain repeated, her tone sharp. Who the hell is them? Nora gestured to the floating, ethereal beings that began to materialize around them. The creatures had no discernible faces or features, only shifting forms of light and shadow that seemed to be made of pure energy. They hovered silently, their presence both mesmerizing and terrifying. One of the beings floated closer, its form stretching and contracting as though trying to communicate. The strange symbols they had seen earlier on the alien craft appeared in midair, glowing faintly before dissolving. Nora's eyes lit up. "They're trying to talk to us," she exclaimed, her voice filled with awe. Rain, however, was less impressed. "Or they're trying to figure out if we're edible," she retorted. "Stay back." But Nora couldn't resist. She stepped forward, her data pad in hand, frantically capturing every flicker of light and movement. "This is incredible," she murmured. "The symbols, they're a language, a living language. It's evolving as we watch." "Nora," Rain warned, her tone low and firm, "this is not the time to play scientist. We don't know what they want, and we're completely exposed." As if in response to Rain's words, the largest of the beings shifted, its form elongating until it towered over them. A deep, resonant tone filled the air, vibrating through their bodies. The symbols reappeared, swirling faster now, their meaning tantalizingly out of reach. Nora squinted at the patterns, her mind racing. "Wait," she muttered, "I think I'm starting to understand. These symbols, they're not just words. They're concepts. Emotions." "Great," Rain said dryly, her grip tightening on her weapon. "Can you figure out if they're happy to see us or planning to kill us?" Nora didn't answer immediately. She was too focused on the symbols, her fingers flying across the data pad. The symbols began to align, forming a pattern that clicked in her mind like a puzzle piece falling into place. Her breath caught. "They're angry," she whispered. "Angry?" Rain repeated, her voice rising. "At what?" Nora looked up, her face pale. "At us. At humanity." Rain's jaw tightened. "Well, that's just fantastic. Any idea why?" Before Nora could respond, the ground rippled again, more violently this time. The beings seemed to grow larger, their forms darkening as the air around them grew colder. The symbols flashed rapidly, too fast for Nora to decode. "They're reacting to something," she said, her voice trembling. "Something we've done." Rain's mind raced. "The broadcast," she said suddenly. "What if the tower's signal triggered this? What if we—" Her words were cut off as the largest being emitted a deafening roar, a sound that wasn't just heard but felt, vibrating through their very bones. The symbols around them flared brighter, and suddenly, the space around them began to shift and contract. "We're not safe here," Rain snapped, grabbing Nora's arm. "We need to move. Now." "But," Nora protested, clutching her data pad. "No buts," Rain said firmly, dragging her toward what looked like an opening in the shifting walls. "We're not sticking around to find out what happens next." The two ran, the ground beneath them shifting and rippling like a living thing. The beings followed, their forms growing more solid, more menacing. The air was thick with tension, every step feeling like a race against an invisible clock. As they reached the opening, they found themselves in a vast chamber filled with strange, alien machinery. The walls were lined with glowing panels, each displaying symbols and images that Nora could barely comprehend. In the center of the room stood a massive structure, pulsating with energy. Nora's eyes widened. "It's a power source," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "This must be what's keeping the ship alive." "Great," Rain said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Let's blow it up and get out of here." Nora shot her a horrified look. "Are you insane? This is a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. We can't just destroy it." "We might not have a choice," Rain replied, her eyes scanning the room for any sign of an exit. "If this thing is what's keeping them angry, we need to shut it down." Before Nora could argue, the largest being appeared in the chamber, its form towering over the machinery. The room vibrated with its presence, the air crackling with energy. The symbols reappeared, swirling faster than ever, their light almost blinding. Nora stared at them, her mind racing. "Wait," she said suddenly. I think I can communicate with them." "Are you out of your mind?" Rain snapped. "These things are clearly not interested in a chat." But Nora was already moving, her eyes locked on the symbols. She began to speak, her voice trembling but steady. The words felt strange in her mouth, foreign yet familiar, as though they were being drawn from some deep, subconscious place. The largest being paused, its form shifting as if considering her words. The symbols slowed, their light dimming slightly. Nora took it as a good sign and continued, her voice growing stronger. Rain watched in disbelief, her rifle still raised. "This is the craziest thing I've ever seen," she muttered under her breath. The symbols finally stopped, aligning themselves into a single, coherent pattern. Nora's breath caught as she read their meaning. "They want us to fix it," she said, her voice filled with awe. "The broadcast, it's broken something in their world. They think we can help." Rain frowned. "And if we don't?" Nora didn't answer. She didn't need to. The look on her face said it all. The beings were giving them a choice. Help fix the damage, or face the consequences. The air in the alien chamber grew heavier as the largest being loomed over Nora and Rain. Its pulsating form emitted a low, resonant hum that reverberated through the room, shaking the strange machinery around them. The symbols swirling in the air had slowed, their patterns sharper and more deliberate now, as if the beings were waiting, demanding an answer. Rain clenched her rifle tightly, her knuckles white. "Nora," she said in a low, urgent tone, "if you've got a plan, now would be the time." Nora stood frozen, her mind racing. The symbols had spoken clearly, humanity's broadcast had damaged something within the alien network, a delicate equilibrium they relied upon for survival. But the question burned in her mind, how could they possibly fix something they didn't understand? Her pulse quickened as she realized the magnitude of the task ahead. "They're asking for help," Nora whispered, staring at the largest being. "But it's beyond anything we've ever encountered. If we make one wrong move, then we're dead," Rain cut in sharply, her voice steady but her eyes filled with intensity. "We've got no choice but to try. These things aren't going to let us walk out of here otherwise." Before Nora could respond, the largest being extended one of its shifting appendages toward her. The motion was slow but deliberate, almost like an invitation. Symbols appeared along its length, glowing faintly, their shapes mesmerizing yet incomprehensible. "What's it doing?" Rain demanded, taking a defensive step forward. "I think." Nora hesitated, her voice trembling. "I think it wants me to connect with it." "Absolutely not," Rain snapped, stepping between Nora and the being. "We don't know what that thing will do to you. We don't have a choice." Nora shot back, her voice uncharacteristically firm. "If I can communicate with them, if I can understand what they need, we might have a chance." Rain stared at her, the conflict evident in her expression. Finally, she gave a reluctant nod. "Fine. But the second it tries anything funny, I'm blowing it to hell." Nora swallowed hard and stepped closer to the being. The appendage shimmered, its surface shifting like liquid metal. Tentatively, she reached out, her fingers brushing against it. The moment they made contact, a surge of energy shot through her, and her vision went white. When the light faded, Nora found herself standing in a vast, ethereal expanse. The environment was unlike anything she had ever seen, a swirling void of colors and shapes that defied logic. In the center of it all was a massive, pulsating structure, its surface covered in the same glowing symbols she had been trying to decipher. "You've entered their network," a voice echoed in her mind. It wasn't hers, and yet it felt as though it came from within her. This is their world, their connection to everything they are. Nora spun around, searching for the source of the voice, but there was nothing, only the void and the pulsating structure. "They're showing you what was broken," the voice continued. "The broadcast disrupted their equilibrium, shattered a delicate balance. They cannot restore it alone." As the voice spoke, images began to form in the void. Nora saw flashes of the broadcast tower on Orpheon 2, its signal piercing the cosmos. She saw the alien beings writhing in pain as the signal disrupted their flow, fracturing the symbols that held their world together. And then she saw it, a core, deep within the pulsating structure, darkened and cracked, its energy leaking out like blood from a wound. Nora's breath hitched. "The broadcast, it's corrupted their core. That's what they want me to fix." The voice didn't respond, but the images shifted, showing her the intricate patterns of the core, the delicate connections that had been severed. Nora's mind struggled to comprehend the complexity of it all, but she knew she didn't have the luxury of time. Back in the chamber, Rain watched in tense silence as Nora stood motionless, her hands still connected to the being. The other creatures hovered nearby, their forms shifting restlessly, as if sensing the urgency of the situation. "How long is this going to take?" Rain muttered under her breath, her eyes darting between Nora and the beings. Suddenly, the chamber shuddered violently, throwing Rain off balance. The largest being emitted a low, guttural sound, and the symbols around it flared brightly. Rain's heart sank. "Something's happening," she said, raising her rifle. "And I don't think it's good." The ground beneath them began to crack, beams of light shooting up from the fractures. The alien machinery sparked and groaned, its systems straining under an invisible weight. The beings grew more agitated, their forms darkening and their movements more erratic. "Whatever you're doing, Nora," Rain called out, her voice rising over the chaos, "do it faster." Inside the void, Nora felt the pressure mounting. The pulsating structure was destabilizing, its cracks widening as more energy leaked out. She focused on the core, her mind racing as she tried to piece together the broken patterns. "I need more time," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't understand enough, I can't." "You must," the voice interrupted, its tone firm but not unkind. "The core depends on balance. Focus on the patterns. See them for what they are." Nora closed her eyes and took a deep breath, forcing herself to calm down. She let the patterns fill her mind, their shapes and movements becoming clearer with each passing second. Slowly, she began to see the connections, the threads that held everything together. "I think I can do this," she said, her voice filled with determination. She reached out mentally, her thoughts weaving through the patterns. Carefully, she began to repair the broken connections, her mind working faster than it ever had before. Each thread she mended brought a small surge of stability to the core, but the cracks were still vast, the damage immense. Outside, Rain was running out of options. The chamber was collapsing around them, the light beams growing brighter and the ground shaking violently. The beings seemed to be in pain, their forms flickering as if struggling to maintain their existence. "Nora!" Rain shouted, her voice desperate. "Whatever you're doing, we're out of time." Inside the void, Nora heard Rain's voice faintly, like a distant echo. She gritted her teeth and pushed harder, her mind straining against the complexity of the core. Sweat dripped down her face as she worked, every fiber of her being focused on the task. Finally, she saw it, a way to stabilize the core, to restore the balance. It wasn't perfect, but it would have to do. "I've got it," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. She reached out one last time, her thoughts aligning with the patterns. The core began to glow brighter, its cracks slowly sealing as the energy flow stabilized. The void around her shifted, the colors and shapes growing calmer. When the light faded, Nora found herself back in the chamber. The beings were still, their forms no longer flickering. The ground had stopped shaking, and the machinery was silent once more. Rain rushed to her side, her eyes wide with concern. "What happened? Did you fix it?" Nora nodded weakly, her legs trembling. "I think so. The core, it's stable now." The largest being stepped forward, its form towering over them. The symbols around it glowed faintly, their patterns slow and deliberate. Nora stared at them, her heart pounding as she read their meaning. "Gratitude," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "They're thanking us." Rain let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "Well, that's a first." The beings began to retreat, their forms growing fainter as they dissolved into the walls. The chamber around them shifted, the glowing panels dimming until only darkness remained. Nora and Rain stood in silence, the weight of what had just happened sinking in. They had survived. But they both knew the story wasn't over yet. Something had awakened in the cosmos, and humanity's place in it would never be the same. The darkness around them lingered for a moment, heavy and oppressive, before the chamber began to shift. The pulsating walls softened into a shimmering light, and the alien beings dissolved into nothingness, as if they had never been there. A low hum replaced the previous chaos, a calm, steady rhythm that seemed to echo the restored balance of the alien core. Nora collapsed to her knees, exhaustion washing over her. Her mind was still buzzing with the alien patterns she had repaired, their complexity leaving a lingering ache in her head. Rain crouched beside her, her rifle slung over her shoulder. "You okay?" Rain asked, her tone softer than usual. Nora nodded weakly, struggling to find her voice. "I think so. Just drained." Rain glanced around the now empty chamber, her sharp eyes scanning for any lingering threats. "Looks like whatever you did worked. The ship, or whatever this thing is, seems stable now." Before Nora could respond, the ground beneath them shifted again. This time, it wasn't the violent tremor of instability but a smooth, deliberate motion. The chamber began to tilt, and a faint light appeared in the distance, a doorway, beckoning them forward. "I guess that's our way out," Rain said, helping Nora to her feet. Nora leaned on Rain for support as they made their way toward the light. The air grew warmer as they approached, the oppressive atmosphere of the alien world giving way to something more familiar. When they stepped through the doorway, they found themselves back on Orpheon 2, the cool night air brushing against their faces. The broadcast tower loomed above them, its lights dim and silent. The surrounding forest was eerily still, the chaos of the last few hours replaced by an almost unnatural calm. Rain took a deep breath, her grip on Nora tightening as she scanned their surroundings. "It's quiet," she said warily. "Too quiet." Nora stepped away from Rain, her strength slowly returning. She stared up at the tower, her mind racing with questions. "The broadcast stopped," she murmured. "They must have shut it down when we stabilized their core." Rain frowned. "And what does that mean for us? For Earth?" Before Nora could answer, a soft light appeared in the sky above them. It wasn't the harsh, otherworldly glow of the alien ship but something gentler, almost peaceful. The light descended slowly, forming into a familiar shape, a small, sleek craft that hovered just above the ground. The craft's hatch opened with a quiet hiss, and a figure stepped out. It was humanoid in shape but unmistakably alien, with elongated limbs and shimmering, iridescent skin. Its eyes, deep and luminous, seemed to pierce through them with a quiet intensity. Nora and Rain exchanged a glance, neither of them speaking. The alien figure raised a hand, and a series of symbols appeared in the air between them, glowing softly. Nora's heart raced as she recognized the patterns. "They're here to talk," she whispered. Rain raised an eyebrow. "Talk? About what?" Nora stepped forward, her mind still attuned to the alien language. She spoke hesitantly, her voice trembling. "We're sorry," she said, her words deliberate. "The broadcast, we didn't know it would harm you." The alien's gaze remained fixed on her, its expression unreadable. More symbols appeared, swirling slowly in the air. Nora studied them carefully, her breath catching as their meaning became clear. "They forgive us," she said, her voice filled with relief. "But they want something in return." Rain's hand instinctively moved to her rifle. "And what exactly do they want?" Nora turned to her, her expression serious. "They want to ensure this never happens again. They want us to dismantle the tower." Rain's eyes narrowed. "Dismantle it? That tower is humanity's last link to the stars. Without it, we're cut off." "It's the only way," Nora said firmly. "The tower's signal disrupted their world. If we leave it active, we risk causing even more damage, not just to them, but to anyone else out there." Rain hesitated, her military instincts clashing with the logic of Nora's argument. Finally, she sighed. "Fine. But we're going to need more than good intentions to make this happen. The higher-ups back on Earth won't just let us take it apart." The alien stepped forward, its movements slow and deliberate. More symbols appeared, their meaning clear and concise. "They're offering to help," Nora said, a note of surprise in her voice. "They'll provide us with the technology we need to maintain communication, safely, without harming anyone." Rain raised an eyebrow. And we're supposed to trust them? After everything that's happened? Nora met her gaze, her expression resolute. They trusted us to fix their core. It's only fair we do the same. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The alien waited patiently, its luminous eyes watching them. Finally, Rain nodded. All right, she said. But if they try anything, I'm holding you responsible. Nora managed a weak smile. Fair enough. The alien extended its hand, and Nora hesitated for only a moment before stepping forward to take it. The moment their hands touched, a surge of warmth filled her, and a wave of images flooded her mind. She saw visions of advanced technology, of peaceful coexistence, of a future where humanity and these beings worked together to explore the cosmos. When the vision faded, the alien released her hand and stepped back. The symbols in the air shifted, forming a single, clear message. Thank you. Nora nodded, her throat tight with emotion. You're welcome. The alien returned to its craft, the hatch closing behind it with a soft hiss. The light enveloped the ship once more, and within moments, it was gone, leaving only the quiet night behind. Rain let out a long breath, her shoulders relaxing for the first time in hours. Well, she said, that was something. Nora smiled faintly. More than something. It was a new beginning. In the weeks that followed, Nora and Rain worked tirelessly to fulfill the alien's request. The tower was dismantled piece by piece, its components studied and repurposed with the help of the alien technology they had been given. Humanity's scientists marveled at the advancements, their understanding of the universe expanding with each new discovery. The aliens kept their word, providing a new system of communication that was safer and more efficient than anything humanity had ever known. The scars left by the broadcast began to heal, and a fragile but hopeful connection was forged between Earth and the stars. For Nora and Rain, the experience left an indelible mark. They had faced the unknown and survived, their bond forged in the crucible of danger and discovery. They had seen humanity's potential for harm, but also its capacity for redemption. One evening, as they stood on the now quiet plains of Orpheon II, Nora looked up at the sky, her eyes filled with wonder. Do you think they'll come back? She asked. Rain shrugged, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Maybe. But if they do, I hope it's because they want to visit, not because we've screwed something up again. Nora laughed softly, her gaze never leaving the stars. Me too. As the two of them stood there, the night enveloping them in its quiet embrace, they felt a renewed sense of purpose. The universe was vast and unpredictable, filled with both wonder and danger. But for the first time, they knew they weren't alone. And that, they realized, was more than enough. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories.